So, how has Josh Taylor gone from being undefeated, undisputed, potentially a top five pound for pound type talent to getting himself into a position now where he's been on a three fight skid officially, and you can unofficially say he's a four fight skid because everyone thinks he lost that fight against Jack Catterall, their first fight. So, how has this happened? And if you look at it from a logical perspective, it does seem to defy logic because if you think about it, here is a fighter who's not had that many fights, relatively speaking. If you look at his record, how many fights has he had? He's only had 22 fights, so it's not like he's been in the sport for like he's had like 50 professional fights and he's just gone over the hill. Relatively speaking, he's not had that many fights. So how it has happened where he's got himself in a position that he's managed to go on this free fight skid and he's managed to lose when he used to be so good. It seems to defy expectations. Now, I've got my own theory on why I think this has happened. I think, right, I remember watching an interview with Josh Taylor not too long ago. I think he mentioned that he when he turned professional, he just expected himself to win a British title, and he would have been happy with that. Like that's all he expected. Like he didn't expect himself to go further than a British title, and then that would have been it. Like he didn't expect himself to go any further than that. Like in terms of his career, and when you look at his entire career and what he's gone on to do, obviously he won so many titles. He won a vacant Commonwealth like welterweight title. He won the WBC silver like welterweight title. Then he beat Victor Postel and he retained that title. Then he won the IBF title. He obviously he was in a World Boxing Super Series and he managed to win that. Then he won the WBC title. He won the WBO title. He won the IBF title. He won the Ring Magazine title. He beat Regis Progress for a massive unification fight where all the titles were on the line. And then after that, he beat Jose Ramirez. And obviously, in 18 fights, he managed to accomplish literally everything you could possibly want in boxing. He managed to accomplish. Obviously, his biggest high-profile fight was his first high-profile fight was the O'Hara Davis fight. That's when he came to the public consciousness, and I believe when he beat him, he won the WBC silver title. So, in terms of his like welterweight run, he literally did it all. I remember when he was at his peak, people were talking about him being a top five pound for pound fighter, and at that point in time, you could make a strong case that he was because the several fighters that he fought, most of them were undefeated. I believe Victor Postel was the only person that had a loss, and he had a loss to Terence Crawford. But apart from him, he beat Ryan Martin, Ivan Baranchik, and obviously O'Hara Davis. A lot of these fighters were undefeated uh, until they fought Josh Taylor, and Josh Taylor completely beat them. And then obviously, after he dominated the international scene and he won all of these titles, Jack Catterall was his domestic rival that was literally on his heels. And obviously he I think he was a WBO mandatory number one. And then obviously if you look at it from a psychological point of view, he's hit such epic highs. Like he's fighting in Glasgow. Obviously, when he fought Jose Ramirez, that was in Las Vegas. He beat Progress in London. So he's hit the highest heights in terms of international boxing. He's gone to Las Vegas. So from you to go to all the way to Las Vegas and be in a fight where you're literally the undisputed champion, to go all the way from there, then you have to go back to somewhat domestic level and fight Jack Catterall, who, although he's a world class fighter at that point in time, Jack Catterall, apart from his win against O'Hara Davis and a few other wins, he wasn't seen as an international type fighter. You can see why he didn't seem like he can get up for that fight. And then obviously we saw what happened. Jack Catterall clearly won that fight. He knocked him down. One of the worst robberies I've ever seen. He lost that fight, in my opinion. And then his next loss was against Teofimo Lopez. Then he rightfully lost against Jack Catterall. I saw that fight. I was there. And then obviously his next loss was against Echo Esserman for the welterweight title. And obviously for the longest time he said he couldn't make the weight. And he thought going up to welterweight, it might give him a bit of energy. And it seemed like it did for the first 6 rounds of that fight. He looked like he was fighting well, but whichever way you cut it, he's had 3 losses in a row, and his first fight against Jack Catterall, that should have been a loss, but for some reason it wasn't counted as a loss. So what is it that's caused him to fall off so dramatically? Well, in my opinion, after he beat Jose Ramirez, and he literally defended his undisputed titles that he won, and against Regis Progress after he became undisputed. The second time he did it, when he had to take a step back to Jack Catterall, I think he overlooked Jack Catterall. He didn't think he was anything. And to be fair, most people did. In that fight, heading into it, everyone saw Josh Taylor as the favourite of that fight, and rightfully so. This is a guy who was undisputed, undefeated, and on most people's opinion, he's a top 5 pound for pound fighter. I mean, you had to put him up there, and regardless of what you think of him now, at that point in time, I think he was the first Scottishman to become undisputed, and he's one of the first fighters from the UK to become undisputed ever. I mean, it was an incredible accomplishment. I don't think many fighters will go on to do that, become undisputed. I mean, he was on a line with like the likes of I think Devin Haney was undisputed, and a few other fighters, they were undisputed. But he was obviously like Usyk and Inui, but like Jack Catterall was there, and then obviously he lost to Teofimo Lopez. That was a decisive loss. At first, I thought because he had to come back to the UK and fight Jack Catterall, that's the reason that he lost that fight. But in reality, if you look at it logically, I thought maybe he's like an away fighter. So when he has to fight in a fighter's backyard, he seems to fight better than if he has to fight in his own home country. But then he lost to Teofimo Lopez, so you can't really use that excuse. Then he lost to Jack Catterall. That fight was closer this time. And then the Echo Esselman fight, we saw what happened. So, in my opinion, after he became undisputed, I think he mentally caved in, like in the sense that he just became satisfied. He felt like he accomplished everything he had to in boxing. And then he had to come back to the UK and fight Jack Catterall. He couldn't get up for that fight. I mean, he wasn't under the bright lights of Las Vegas or part of the Super Series. It was just a mandatory opponent that, no offense to the guy, but Jack Catterall is quite an obscure opposition at that point in time. He was kind of like a boring fighter, like a unassuming type opponent. You would easily overlook him as one of the best fighters. Even now, people overlook him. They see him as a spoiler and a good fighter, but they don't have much awe for him. So and then obviously the Teofimo Lopez fight, he was coming off a fight where a lot of people thought he lost to Jack Catterall, but then he obviously lost to Teofimo Lopez, who on his best day, Teofimo Lopez is easily a top 5 pound for pound type talent. And then obviously he lost to Jack Catterall again. So if you take everything into account, like I think he got to a level in the sport where it's like, I've reached the level that I wanted to, and he just couldn't retain his enthusiasm for the sport because he accomplished everything he did. You got to remember, this guy came from a position where he only expected himself to win a British title. He never expected himself to go this far. So after he accomplished all of this and he had to take a step back and fight Jack Catterall, his mental focus was gone. And then obviously there's rumors about him always drinking, always been clubbing and such like that, and liking the nightlife. So with all of that, I think he mentally broke himself before he physically broke himself. But at this point in time, I think he might be physically broken because he didn't seem to have the stamina to go 12 rounds. Echo Westerman is nowhere near as talented as Josh Taylor, and you can see that in the first 6 rounds. But he's just a tough guy who's got great stamina. While if you look at Josh Taylor, because he's burnt the candle at both ends, um, he's obviously trained really hard, but he got these bad habits like drinking and such, and obviously the mental thing that I told you about. Um, I think he could be finished now. Physically, he might be finished. Um, right it's crazy. This might be one of the biggest falls from graces that I've ever seen in the sport. The biggest fall from grace that I've ever seen. Well, there's two. Obviously, when Mike Tyson lost to Buster Douglas. But the thing about Mike Tyson was, when he lost to Buster Douglas, he came back with wins. I mean, he had that massive drop off when he lost to Buster Douglas, but he didn't have like 2, 3, 4 losses in a row the way Josh Taylor did. And then obviously you got Roy Jones after he lost to Antonio Tarver, after he won a version of the heavyweight title. When he decided to go back down to I think his light heavyweight, he lost to Antonio Tarver, and then he lost to Glenn Johnson, and both of them losses were like decisive, concussive KO losses. So to be fair, them losses were not as bad. Like the losses that Josh Taylor has had, they've at least been decisions. He's not been knocked out. He got knocked down in his first fight against Jack Catterall, but he never been knocked out. So from that perspective, it's not as dramatic come down as like say Roy Jones getting knocked out by Antonio Tarver and then Glenn Johnson. But to be fair, this is a massive fall from grace to go from undisputed to now being on a free fight skid against let's be honest, like most of it being domestic opposition apart from Teofimo Lopez. This is a massive fall from grace. So to answer the question, why has he fallen off? I think he's fallen off mainly because of his lifestyle outside of the ring. It's caught up with him, a bit of age as well. Obviously he's like 34 years old, which is kind of old for the lower weight classes, like the light welterweights and such. And then on top of that, if you think about it from the perspective of, I think mentally, after he accomplished everything that he wanted to in the sport, mentally he capitulated. I mean, there was, he became undisputed, and he probably felt like, what else is there for me to accomplish in the sport? I've done it all. He was top five pound for pound, and it was actually, he unified the four major titles and only became the sixth male boxer to do so. Um, I mean, it's actually incredible what he accomplished. That run that he went on, where he picked up four versions of the world titles, is quite impressive. So, tell me what you think. Why do you think Josh Taylor's fallen off? What's the reason for this? And like and subscribe to the channel. I've got a lot more content coming your way. Peace.